Welcome, welcome. Today's episode, we're talking about empowering women through travel. Today we have our special guest, Doni Belau, with Girls Guide to the World. And Girls Guide empowers women to explore the world and is a go-to resource for women seeking adventure, connection, and unforgettable experiences. So, welcome, Doni.
Thank you guys so much for having me on the show. I'm just thrilled to be here.
Yay. All right, so can you tell us a little bit about your personal journey and how you started solo traveling and maybe what inspired you to create Girls Guide to the World?
Great question. I think I was in my 40s, maybe mid 40s, the first time I ever went completely solo. I'm not counting a trip to go see my sister, right? I'm talking about going, I went to Spain. I actually took about a whole month, and I think the kids were in camp. It must have been summer. And I said to my husband, I just need to have some time by myself on my own. And luckily he's a very understanding guy, and he didn't panic. He's like, okay, sure, whatever you have to do. And it was the best thing I ever did for myself because you know, I don't know about you ladies or anyone else who's listening, but if you are with the same person, we actually have been together since high school. We did break up a bunch, but we've been married since we were 24. So, you know, stone cold together for a long, long time. You start to blame any kind of unhappiness if you're being lazy on your partner sometimes. And I remember as soon as I got away and I had this whole kind of adventure plan for myself, and sometimes I was meeting up with other people, but in general, I was spending, unprecedented amount of time alone. I called him like day 3 and I said, okay, it's not you, it's me. It's not you, it's me. I figured that out already in like 2 weeks,
Like the
you know.
Tay I'm
Yeah.
the problem, it's me.
I just needed some time to remember who I was because in the
Mhm.
service of a marriage, children, jobs, all the C list, which is, keeping it clean, going to the dry cleaner, all, the
Mhm.
garage, whatever else we have on our list.
Mhm.
It is easy to forget who you are outside of all of these kind of roles.
Yes.
So that was really eye-opening for me. Now, flash forward, it was probably another decade before I ever considered starting this company. And as I probably told you guys on our sort of intro call, I originally started Girls Guide. It was a Girls Guide to Paris, and it was going to be a content website focused on Paris. And it was an online guide, basically, as it sounds. So restaurants, hotels, all the things you
Yeah.
or in like a Fodor's or Frommer's or Moon Guide. And believe it or not, in 2009, that was kind of a revolutionary idea because everybody at that time was still buying those heavy books, which are still great, but you don't really want to walk down the street with them, and they don't always have the most up to date information.
Right.
We put out a blog post every day. We got up to the point where we had 1 million readers a year,
That's
but I
fabulous.
was making no money. So
Mm.
I'm working, 10 hours a day and losing money. And I said, this is not a great business plan because I hadn't made a business plan. So I
Yeah.
always tell people I could tell you exactly how not to start a business. So it was clearly, a passion project. I was looking to get out of a former career, which was in politics and not for profit. And I was enjoying myself, except for the fact that this was costing me money to do this job.
Mm.
So eventually we came to the idea of doing tours, and that started slow. And, there was another learning curve there, but eventually, and really kind of jump started in during COVID when we had that time to plan and partner up and redo our website. So now we're at 65 tours next year to 40
That's
different
amazing.
countries. Yeah.
That's
Congratulations.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kudos to you. That's quite an undertaking in such a short duration.
Right.
Yeah, well, it was 15 years, so it
Well, you were working on it in the background for a hot minute before you brought it to fruition.
yes,
We'll
yes.
twist it that way. It sounds a little better.
It was not an overnight success, so I don't want to bill it as that. And I do want to tell anyone out there who's, got their own project, just keep going and believe in yourself because there was many times where I could have just said, this is crazy. What am I doing?
Oh, and look
But
where
we're
you
glad you
are
kept
now.
going.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's amazing. So, as our listeners probably know, Denise and I are two very different types of travelers. I'm more of the adventurous travel choice. I'm more adventurous in my travel choices. Denise is more cautious.
Mhm.
And so, like, I'm more likely to jump into the types of trips that you offer, whereas Denise is going to be more hesitant. And when we were prepping for this interview today, um, we realized we both had two different definitions of what solo travel meant to us. And it was
Ah,
very interesting how, as we were putting our thoughts together and trying to figure out like the direction of this, we had to come together on what we thought of as a solo traveler. So our thoughts on the definition of it, what the concerns and cautions could be for each individual type was very eye-opening for us. So I'm going to let Denise kick off with what she thought was a solo traveler, because she's the one that pointed out to me that we were not on the same page of even what that meant.
Well, right. Yeah. So to me, when I think of solo travel, I think I'm completely on my own. Like I have to make the trip. I have to figure out where is safe to go. I have to navigate where I'm going, not getting human trafficked and having somebody knowledgeable there where I'm going. And when I look at what you do with your platform is I start out solo, but then I'm also coming into a knowledgeable travel guide, somebody that's been there, that knows where to go, what to do, and I'm going to be traveling with a small group of other ladies, and I'm going to not necessarily be on my own, and maybe some things that I'm better at traveling with they're not as good as, and vice versa, so we can all kind of be in it together. So I think that when just knowing what you offer, and that to me as a solo traveler, that kind of took the fear out of it a little bit. Whereas when we were talking about it, Cheryl, you had a little bit of different
I
things
did.
about what you were concerned about traveling solo.
It was very interesting because as she's telling me and we're coming up with our topics and she described that, I was like, but wait, that's not what I consider solo travel. I said, I can get from my destination. I'm not a, I don't even think twice about going to the airport, getting a cab or anything. It's when I arrive, I don't know the group I'm meeting. I don't
Mm,
know if I'm gonna mesh with them. I don't know if I'm gonna have someone to eat dinner with. That's where I feel the solo travel part kicks in, is
mm.
when I show up to a group of people I've never met. And it was just eye-opening that we both had two different definitions of solo travel and what that led into our hesitations of jumping into that type of trip. So it was interesting.
That's
yeah.
really funny because you know that I thought like you did, Denise, before I was actually in the business of solo travel, not knowing that I was in the business of solo travel. Okay. So apparently, this is not well defined for anyone. So you guys are not alone. And I want to speak to both anxieties too that you brought up after this. But I was at a conference in Italy, a travel conference, and I'm sitting next to this woman who has a website called Solo Traveler, Janice, lovely lady, and I was telling her about what I do, and we have these tours for women only. She said, "Oh yeah, solo travel." I said, "Oh no, no, it's not solo because they're together." And she said, "No, no, no, that's considered solo travel." So I had to be told that I was in the solo travel business.
Okay.
So it is not clearly defined because I thought, absolutely thought that solo travel, it was what I did, back in Spain, those 10 years before was, going completely alone to a place, figuring it all out on your own, having dinner alone, being alone, solo the whole time. And maybe you
Yes.
meet somebody in, at
Right.
a restaurant who's sitting next to you, but you're doing everything alone. That is solo travel, clearly, but technically, in the world of travel, in the business of travel, solo travel is also going alone, joining a group that you where you don't know the people. Okay,
Right.
so there are two kinds of solo travel, which is, I think, enlightening for a lot of us because I, don't we didn't realize that because.
Right.
So I would call my kind of solo travel the gateway drug to, the real solo travel, totally on your own. And you may not want to get there. You might enjoy And I think actually any kind of travel is really fabulous, whether you're traveling
Absolutely.
completely solo with a group like mine, with family, with a friend, any kind of with a an educational group, a volunteer group. I mean, it's any way to get out there. But the anxieties around solo travel, whether it be now I see everything in the people that we talk to, almost all the people that come before they come on our trips. And a lot of people are very worried about navigating airports. That is a concern. Now, it's hard because sometimes I have to put my, other hat on to remember that that can be really scary for people, and they think that they have to know the language in, said country if they're, making a transition there, they're deplaning and getting on another plane, and they have a transfer there, oh my God, what am I going to do if it's Singapore? And, but everyone speaks English in the world, in the world of travel, almost everyone. We're really lucky because if you're a Dane or if you live in Hungary, that's not happening for you. You need to speak English. That's the common language right at this moment in time. But the other anxiety that a lot of people have is joining a group where you don't know folks. Will I like them? Will they like me? There's that fourth grade trauma that everybody,
Yes.
what not
So I
getting
think we kind of hit the nail on the head with both of our different versions of fear going into it. So
exactly.
so you did discuss some of the common fears that women have expressed to you about solo travel. Some of my bigger ones were like, I'm okay to travel to like, you have some more cookie cutter like Charleston, South Carolina for Christmas, but when I think about the more adventurous parts of the world where we're doing like safari treks in Tanzania or Kenya, like
Yeah.
how do you dispel some of the fears of going on some of those more adventurous treks when you really are not, that's kind of out of your safety, like out of your comfort zone, but you're up for the challenge? Like what would you say to those ladies?
Well, what I do is really drill down on what they're worried about specifically. So, I mean, we could do a trial with you if you want right now. Like if you said you wanted to go on safari, but you're concerned, what would your concerns be? Because everybody has different concerns. Now, you might think they have the same, but they don't. Every concern is different. And I think I've dealt with almost every possible thing so far, but who
Well,
knows?
so for like, just let me give you an example of like an anxiety trigger for me would be being in a safari car and we've got our guide and we're coming up, but we come up on a huge herd of like elephants or something, and then they're like charging us or an animal's running after us. Like, my concern is like, God, are we prepared to get out of there alive? Like, are there protocols? Do we only go into areas that are like these ones are kind of a little more tame, they won't charge you, or we have these parameters? Like, I would never get down in a shark tank. You can say let's go to Australia and look at the Great Barrier Reef. I like the idea of snorkeling, but I'm not sure that I could go out swim with the sharks. You see what I'm saying?
So you don't want to be eaten while on vacation.
Correct.
I
That's
don't think
exactly
that's too
correct
much
on
to
it.
ask.
You're
I
picking
don't
up what I'm putting down.
I do not think that's too much to ask. And if we had a lot of people eating on our trips, we would not be in business much longer. So just
Fair
to
enough. Fair enough.
no, but that is a real fear as
Yeah.
people are not familiar with what it's like to be on safari and they don't know. How would you know? Like, unless you'd really research that. So I've been on safari like 25 times. And it is literally the most fun and exhilarating experience that you can have. But you have to keep in mind that all these animals have grown up with vehicles coming to see them since they were babies. So they don't think of that vehicle as having humans in it. Elephants are not, they don't eat meat, right? So they're not looking
That's
to,
true.
right. They're not looking to eat us. The lions are really looking for, antelope and, gazelle, for example. They don't think anything of the vehicle that pulls up next to them. But of course, all of these guides that we use, and of course, almost any safari you'd go on, has really well-trained guides, and drivers. So they have and they don't get right up next to the animal because that's not cool. It's
Right.
really not, it's forbidden in most parks, almost all parks. Um, So I was at one time really close to an elephant just because they started walking towards us. And it was a baby who was focused on eating. He didn't even see us. They don't look at you. Like they're not sometimes a lion will look, just notice, oh, there's a vehicle, the sound. They
Mhm.
are not, they're really looking at the vehicle, not you. And I was actually just on safari in Rwanda. And in that case, we did the trekking with the gorillas. So I had
Nice.
Silverback, the guy who does this, the
Yes.
head of the group, the big one, come really right up close.
They're
Within
very curious, right?
Yep, there have well, what's interesting, and this is what is great about going on these trips, is that you learn so much more than you didn't know. Now, I thought, oh, trekking with gorillas, that sounds cool. I'm more like you, Cheryl. I'm like, I'm a junkie for something new. I'll do it.
Mhm.
I am not going to get in a Shark Tank, however. I'm not going to throw myself out of a plane. I think that's crazy. But I thought, then, as at the moment of this silverback coming right up next to me and just, he was basically passing me. He wasn't looking for me. Uh, but I got a little nervous, and the guide said, could sense my nervous. He said, "It's okay. It's okay. Everything's fine." So they teach you a call. It's like, that call lets them know, as Diane Fossey did all this work back in the 70s. Uh,
Mhm.
uh, through the 90s, I think. But, that's the sign for them to know that you guys are coming, you're friendly, they are habituated since they were babies, all of these gorillas, to people, because every single day, well, I think it's about 6 days a week, there's a group of people that come to see them. There's
Nice.
all kinds of parameters, they don't get too close, they keep moving you out of the way, and then the guides, all the guides and the trackers know just what to say to the animals to know they're basically signaling, "Hey, we come in peace, we're cool, everything's fine." It's a happy sound, this and so then they teach you to do it, and
Mm,
it's really fun to get over these fears too, or to just
yeah.
learn enough so you realize, oh, I'm actually not in danger, and how amazing that I got to be that close to a gorilla. Oh my
Yeah.
God. I
No,
mean,
I
Right.
life
think
just
those are
mind
all
blowing.
great things that already makes me feel more like I might potentially do something like that.
All right. So cool. But yeah,
Nice.
anxieties run in all directions. And it could be, I don't like to fly a Boeing plane, you know.
Mhm.
I had a
That's a
girl like
valid
that
concern.
recently. Yeah. So, of course, you have to look at statistics. I do like to look at statistics and
Right.
remember how much more unsafe it is when I get in my car
True.
than it
Mhm.
is to do anything on a plane. But I try and help people through it. But and I do think that's a part of what travel is about, is to break through some of these fears and empower yourself. I mean, we love to empower women to find their place in the world of feeling safe and feeling okay to travel and experiencing all those joys that you get by doing so.
Yeah, absolutely. And statistically speaking, aren't women more like now women are traveling more solo than any other people in
Group.
the world?
Yeah, so there's been a number of studies done on this, and polls taken and so forth, because this is a big growing business in the world of travel, is solo
Yeah,
women travel. So something like 80% of all solo travelers are women,
that's
which is a
high.
Mhm.
surprising number. And of those people who are traveling solo that are women, 85% are over 45. So that
Yeah,
also makes some sense. I don't know if that'll change actually. Maybe it will change, but I think that makes sense just because you have more time and more money when you get older. Uh,
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but what I love is that at younger people, my daughter who's 30, 31 actually, but all of her friends, they're not nearly as afraid to or worried about traveling solo.
Embrace
It's
that. Yeah.
they're embracing it, right, which is great. I mean, they still would rather probably go with a friend, but as you get older, it's actually really fun to find that time on your own, especially if you've raised kids, you've been in service
Mhm.
all kinds of people, and then you have that time to yourself as well as you're sick of maybe waiting for your friend or whoever, and now you get to join a group and make some new friends that are really as gung ho about travel as you are.
Yeah.
Right. So one of the things I saw was very interesting on when I was going through some of the trips that you have currently offered. The group, if you whatever trip you pick, usually the host or the guide for that trip is already up there. You get an introduction to them, so you're knowing ahead of time who's going to kind of be leading that. So that's what that kind of alleviates some of the fears of some people have of giving away the trust of planning the trip. Do you do anything to connect the group before they travel? Are they building like a some type of bond before they go? Are they able to communicate so that it's not so like for me, that's my thing is showing up and have I connected with anybody to have breakfast with? Does anybody get up early for the sunrise? My that kind of thing. Do they get to have that moment before leading up to the trip?
That's a great question, which I don't think I've been asked before, but we do a pre-trip call with the guide, with usually with me. If I can't do it, my operations manager Sherry will do it. So all the people who are going on that trip, as well as the guide, sometimes the expert from that country, and one either myself or one of our key team members will host that. And the purpose of the call is number one, that they can ask any questions that that they have. A lot of questions are often asked about what to pack, what to wear, all any questions that they have. We go through a whole list of things that they need to do, and just best practices and making sure their phone works there and all that kind of practical stuff. But the primary reason is that they can meet all the other ladies who are on the trip. And so they get to introduce themselves. I usually ask them a couple of questions and they'll talk, and then each person talks as well as the guides, and everybody gets to tell a little bit about themselves. So that allows people to pre-connect, if you will.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we establish a WhatsApp group. So we use WhatsApp. If anybody doesn't know what it is, it's basically a texting platform, just like text messenger that we all use here,
Yeah.
but it's free and everybody in the rest of the world uses it.
Mhm.
So it's a way that they have a group. And so about a week before we invite them to that group. So let's say you're coming early, and Susan is also coming early, and you guys will connect and say, hey, I'm gonna go downstairs and have a drink at 5 o'clock. You want to join me? They almost always do that. A lot of people will come a day early, and then they'll have a whole bunch of time to actually get to know each other even before the welcome dinner. And then the welcome dinner, we go around and we have like icebreakers, and we actually have trained our facilitators in how to get a group of people to connect. So everybody has to sit next to a different person. You're not always like, if you connect with Susan right away and you've already had a pre-trip drink with her, the next night we want you to sit next to Josie, and then someone else the next night, so that
Okay.
you get to know each and every person. So we really have spent a lot of time dealing with the whole group dynamic thing, because Cheryl, you're not alone in that worry that, am I going to connect with somebody?
Mhm.
However, I will say that because everyone gets their own room, unless you really are coming with a friend that you really want to share with, and most people don't want to share, you do need that time alone as well. So you want to
Mhm.
connect with people, but then you want to then retreat into your own room and just, watch TV, hang around in your underwear, or whatever you want to do, eat too much chocolate, I don't know, but it's nice not to have to act, because so many women's only travel groups put you with somebody you don't know in the same room to save
Yes.
it's cheaper, of course, and I understand that, but it's kind of uncomfortable, at least for the first couple of nights, to do that.
Absolutely. I love that because I love my downtime. I love people. I want to be around. But when I'm done, as Denise, I'm the first one. I'm going to bed. I'm checking
Yep.
out. I'm usually like the first one to go. And I want that just minutes. And it is hard sometimes when you're traveling with someone you don't know. I've done that on a lot of school trips. I've been a chaperone on lots of school trips. And when you're chaperone, stuck with the parent that you don't know, don't necessarily, it can make for an interesting trip.
Yeah, you just don't ever have that time to really relax, that you can only do with your spouse, your best friend, your sister, or just alone. It's important because traveling, especially when you're touring and you're seeing a lot of stuff or going from place to place, it can be tiring and you need that restorative time, both emotionally and physically.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I agree. Yeah. So kind of my takeaway is like this is fabulous. Like I do know that girls trips, we just were on a girls beach
Mhm.
weekend and we call it almost like a retreat because we mostly all had our own rooms and we could, but what I loved is the bonding experience, how we all prepped vegetables and chopped vegetables and had stuff to make dinners together, and we were dancing around with our music and having our little bevies, and it was a chance to bond and talk about our lives. Like most of us have been married 20 years, and so we're talking about the ups and downs of marriages and our children and whatever everything they're going through and our highs and lows, because we all every day have some good days and some down days. So I just think that this type of a trip is really can refill your cup, and it's a great way to, if you don't have a, like, not everybody can go at the same time, so we threw this together and luckily it panned out. But a lot of times you should plan a year in advance, especially if this is a pricey trip, but not all your girlfriends can go. Maybe one just had a grandchild, maybe somebody's doing this, and so it's an opportunity for you as a person that maybe I'm too scared to be an actual solo traveler, but I could tiptoe my little feet in the water and say I'm a solo traveler, but then meet up with other ladies and experience an opportunity that I would never otherwise book on my own. So I just have to say it's been amazing to meet you and discuss what opportunities that you have going on. Out of all your trips, I saw so many trips that you had. What would you say are maybe some bucket list destinations, or some that are worth the little bit of anxiety, or just what would you say are your top trips and why? Like why would you pick those for the ladies to come on?
Well, we kind of have something for everyone. For me, I'm really passionate right now about Japan. I think it's an incredibly fascinating culture.
Yeah.
And I could talk for hours about that. I think if you've never been to Africa, to do any kind
Mhm.
of African safari, we offer 5 or 6 trips to Africa and including Northern Africa. Egypt is a must do. It's, where sort of history started. It's
Mhm.
it's incredible. We do our own private dahabaya, a traditional boat down the Nile, to sail down the Nile, but no, with nobody else. It's,
Yeah.
you're not in a big cruise ship,
Right.
is amazing. But, starting small, if you've never been to Europe, you got to go to Paris. Of course, we have lots and lots of
I
trips
saw
to
your
France.
Provence one, and remember Uncle John's like, you gotta go to Provence. Like that's
Yes.
Yeah.
where you gotta go. They have the best wine. It's beautiful. Like, so that might be one of my starter. That's not so scary.
Not at all, and there is that the group of people who will say, "Do I need to speak French?" Of course not. We have guides that are going to speak the language for you, so you don't need to speak anything other than, "I would like to have a glass of wine," you know?
Yeah.
That's awesome. One of the
We
things
vino.
yes, one of the things I really found, and especially as we've been talking and Denise and I have been walking through this, um, I find it as we get older, as women get older and our roles change and our kids aren't so much the center of it, it's harder for us to make new friends. It
Yes.
is, and we realize that sometimes the friends we made through our children, we all separate. We kind of drift apart, not for anything, it's just because life. We were friends through our kids.
Yep.
This seems like an amazing opportunity to go out, meet people that you wouldn't meet from all over, and create our own friendships that are outside of being someone's spouse, being someone's mom, being the volunteer that works, always at the PTO meetings or something. Like it's hard to make new friends after 40, I think.
It is. It is. We made so many of our closest friends, through the Mommy and Me and then the
Mhm.
preschool, and we still have those friends, but I've met great friends through different, work circumstances, but it absolutely gets harder. And then what happens as you guys get a little bit older, your kids, now you become empty nesters, a lot of
Mhm.
people move. Like we moved down to New Orleans to get out of New York City winter, New York winters. And, half of our friends have, moved somewhere. Some of them are still up there. So that happens as well. So it is, you find yourself in all kinds of different situations where you need to find new ways to make friends. And not everybody is like a travel-aholic like I am and like, you guys are. But it is really an opportunity to meet some like-minded women. Now, they may
Mhm.
not be from where you're from, they may not be your age, which is the greatest thing, is to make friends with somebody who's 20 years older or younger, and
Mhm.
to realize how much you have in common. It's not just, our kids are in kindergarten at the same time, but,
Yes.
you know, we have so much to teach each other. We do
Mhm.
the same thing, like, what you were saying for your beach weekend. I loved how you described it as refilling or filling up your cup. That's a
Mhm.
great way to put it because that's exactly what it feels like on these trips. If you give, not everybody drinks wine, but if you give people a glass of wine, everyone gets 2 glasses of wine with dinner. By the end of night 1, people have shared a lot. As you know, we women are like that. Now,
Mhm. Mhm.
there's maybe the shyer one, it may take her till night 2, but pretty soon by the end of the trip, everybody knows, what this divorce situation was, or what, the kid that was difficult, or, all kinds of stuff and what they've been through, what they've been through with work, what their plans for the future are. And the main thing that I love about the sharing is the laughing. So
Mhm.
women get together and we giggle, we cackle, we guffaw,
Yes.
and that I almost get goosebumps thinking about it because there's nothing better than a great laugh to make you feel 15 years younger, to sort of rejuvenate those senses that have been sort of dulled down by just that everyday, day to day
Mhm.
stuff that we go through and just the hardship of life. Even if you've got it really easy, it's not easy, life is not easy. But laughing with old friends or new friends is kind of what life is all about.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Well,
definitely.
we're so excited to have met you and found this great opportunity that you're offering us women. It's across the board, like Denise said, that we did see trips for just about any level of where your comfort is right now, as well as the way you walk them through overcoming those and getting them in there and what the value is that they get, not just the destination and the experience, but the relationships that they can form on this journey. So that is amazing. Where is the best place for our listeners to go to find more information about what you have to offer?
Well, you can find everything on our website. It's Girls Guide to the World. So TO the World. We have a contact page there. You can sign up for our face group. It's basically a one of those private Facebook groups, and that is a sort of ad-free zone. We call it the Girls Guide Traveling Sisterhood. It's a place that we just cheer each other on to, get out there and go for it. And whether that's solo, whether that's with us, whether that's with another company, or just going to visit your aunt, we're there to cheer you on. If you want to have a conversation with us, we love to talk to people about trips they're considering, just about their situation, where they're at in their life story, and where they want to go, what are their dreams are, and if we can help them accomplish some of those. We always have somebody standing by to talk to you. So, and we, of course, are on Facebook and Pinterest and Instagram, and those are all linked on that contact page. And it's actually fun. People say they really enjoy reading about all the trips and imagining. And that's, part of the planning and imagining
Mhm.
is half the fun too.
Awesome. We will make sure we drop those links in our show
Um,
notes as well. But
Thank you.
Donnie, thank you so much for joining us. And we appreciate all the knowledge you brought and all the time and effort you put in into making a safe space for women to travel the world. We thank you
Well,
for that.
thank you too so much. I love what you guys are doing and just keep on it. Keep keep on it and keep inspiring women like myself. Thank you for all that you do.
awesome. All right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap up today's episode. We will see you next time.